Gintama is undoubtedly an outlier in many aspects of its storytelling, and as a shonen series that went on for an extremely long time, when you compare it to other major shonen series that went on for a very long time and were also being serialized alongside Gintama, then that just helps to distinguish it even more. I recently just watched all of it and I fully understand now why it received such a high level of praise, why so many people love it. And I made a video a couple weeks ago going over my more general thoughts as a first time viewer if you are interested, but here I want to delve a bit deeper than saying I like these characters or I like this arc, because after more than 15 years of serialization, although it's currently exam season for me, so there's no way I'm gonna have the time to talk about it all, you know that it is filled with stuff to talk about, and I will split this video up into 3 sections for 3 different themes. So beginning with the theme of individuality and finding yourself, where Gintoki is a perfect example to use for this, because he is very lazy, seemingly just really unmotivated and unbothered with life, working as a freelancer, completing and taking care of the random needs and wants of others. So he hasn't found a proper fit for himself in this new world, but rather he's settled with doing whatever. So Odd Jobs itself is very purposefully undefined in its purpose. However, that lack of definition is Gintoki's and his Odd Jobs business's greatest asset, because you wouldn't really call it a profession that fits nicely into society no matter what era or time period we're talking about. If someone told you they complete random jobs for a living, the thought will cross your mind that it doesn't sound very glamorous, it doesn't sound like a respectable job. It seems like something someone would take up after either exhausting all other options, in the sense that they just now will literally do anything, or they just don't care, and that is obviously Gintoki. But such a place with no clear role, no clear place to call its own, would surely make it the perfect fit for people who find themselves to be kind of suffering from that same thing. They don't know what to do with themselves. Shinpachi, he was working in a cafe but had only ever known the way of the sword himself, he didn't fit there. And some crazy exploits later with Gintoki involved, he straight away finds himself working in odd jobs. And Kagura, someone who knows nothing but her own strength, she joined a gang where again she did not fit in. And guess what? After some more crazy exploits, again featuring Gintoki himself, she joined Odd Jobs as well. It's a place for people to find themselves. So back to Gintoki now, the original odd jobber. He is a swordsman in a new world where being one is a crime. This world has changed so immensely since the Amanto invasion, yet he's refused to conform to their wants, their laws. He still walks around as a samurai. So back to the idea of being undefined. Although he is a samurai, he is not one in the traditional sense, and although he is going against the law, he's not a rebel in the traditional sense. And even though he does have his own business, he is not a responsible adult at all. So his sense of self, his individuality, comes in the form of his refusal to be defined. So to compare to other shonen series where there's clear absolute end goals to be obtained by the end of the story, Gintama's lesson here is to say it's okay not to have some lofty goal that far eclipses anything you've ever done or that is expected of you, as long as you are content. You can do whatever you want to do. You're not defined by how big your achievements are, you're defined by whatever the heck you choose to be defined by, however the heck you choose to define yourself. But next, and alternatively, let's bring it closer to those shonen series with the theme of friendship, bonds that can be in any way shaped or formed. It can be through absurdity, it can be messy, it can be a winding path to get there, it can be forged in failure, but the main thing is that these friendships are earned. And when I say that, I mean it in a general sense, because this seems obvious, but with any friendship, any real friendship, you don't just meet someone and suddenly become connected at the hip. A connection is formed over time where you go through trials and tribulations of any kind, big bumps or small ones, where you learn more about each other. And that doesn't mean learning someone's birthday or something, because with most of my closest friends who I've known for half my life, I still don't know their birthdays, because it's not really that kind of stuff that creates a friendship, is it? It can be shared interests, maybe a shared situation that's brought you together, or maybe it's when you give something to each other. And to lead on from the individuality which I was talking about before, with the main trio, it was their incompleteness that ended up bringing them together and keeping them together. Gintoki, who by the time we meet him has already gone through an entire story, one where he lost everything. His attitude was essentially be a mask, but when Shinpachi and Kagura and eventually everyone else started coming into the picture, that mask started to come off. And what they gave him was a real family, where he did not have to hide away. Shinpachi, who you could say is the most normal out of the three, he lost his parents and was struggling with the loss of his family dojo alongside his sister. Joining up with odd jobs gave him this courage and purpose beyond those limitations of just being normal. Kagura, after everything we learn about her family, she was given a safe space in odd jobs where she could settle in and grow. She found a sibling connection here that was different to all of that which she went through previously. Each of them are just trying to get by. They aren't united by shared goals or anything superficial. They weren't forced together, they chose to come together. And beyond just these three and talking about the story as a whole, I talked about it a bit in my other video, but the comedy is the glue that brings it all together. And applying that to the theme of bonds and friendships, most of the interactions aren't each of the characters pouring their hearts out to each other. It's not them having these really deep conversations about what they mean to one another. It's them messing with each other, insulting each other, bickering with each other, and it's that which is the sign of a real friendship. In real life, you know you're good friends with someone if you are able to talk to them in such a disrespectful way that if you talk to a stranger like that, they might have to call the cops on you. It's the annoyance, the teasing, that ridiculousness. Obviously, Gintama being a fictional story, it's going to be very exaggerated, like if they toss someone off of a multi-story building, but it's clear that the substance is always there. And lastly on this one, it doesn't show friendship as permanent or unbending. Look at the wildly different directions he, Katsura and Takasugi took after everything that happened in their past. While Katsura did find himself back with Gintoki, Takasugi found himself staring at them from across a chasm. He ended up opposing them. His choices forced him into a position where he would have to face them. However, it was still a bond that could be salvaged. It was fractured, broken even, but that didn't mean it was gone. Friendships aren't always easy, they require effort, they need to be worked on and fixed up, but that's why friendships are always earned. And finally, existentialism, and we stick with Gintoki because it's actually a lot to do with what's already been said. After the war, after he lost, what was he supposed to do? People say once you hit rock bottom, the only way is up, but what if you just choose to stay at rock bottom? Then what? You don't have a reason to really try anymore, nor do you care, so you get used to this kind of nihilism. That's Gintoki on face value, and while it is true that he didn't care when we first met him, what happens when suddenly he has stuff that he cares about? Again, going back and taking the idea of being undefined from the first section, and let's take the idea of the sense of family he found from the second section. He definitely cares. He cares so much that he's being crushed by the weight of that feeling. We see it every time, how he goes to such great lengths for his family and friends that he's found, he's been given, even if he doesn't show it day to day, even if he doesn't put it into words. Just like with your friends and family, where you don't often express how much they mean to you, but you know for a fact that they mean a lot. Gintoki, he wants to keep this life he now has. Another example is Takasugi himself, who chose to destroy this new world rather than be forced to accept it. After having everything taken from him, his conclusion was that he couldn't save this place, so he might as well get rid of it. He's not gonna let it fester, so he'll burn it. This kind of motivation you do see a lot in storytelling, where a character has nothing left to lose, and the main criticism is usually that it's not gonna achieve anything, so what's the point? It may even make things worse. But the vast majority of us haven't been in a situation, thankfully I should add, where we lose everything. So I'm not a philosopher or a psychiatrist, but who's to say how you would react if everything you held dear was taken from you, even if your actions affect people who did no wrong, had no connection to your situation? What reason should you have to care about any of that? They say it's not gonna make things better. Exactly, so why should I have any concern for it? That's how I view this motivation, Takasugi's motivation, although obviously I'm not defending him. And most importantly, this is a path Gintoki himself could have taken, and the implications of that are basically everything we did see Takasugi do. They both chose to live without a care, but it ended up going in two very different directions. And back to the other shonen series again, where usually each episode or chapter has a sense of purpose about it, either as an individual episode or as the part of a larger arc. It's supposed to get to a specific point. With Gintoki, he doesn't act with that same urgency or directive in mind. He goes into every day not into a grand adventure, but rather into something, whatever appears in front of him. The small things that aren't anything spectacular at all, they're rather insignificant, but when you put all those little pieces together, they make up everything. Literally, the little pieces make up everything. And with the format being episodic for so much of the series, it does echo that sentiment where the characters will do just whatever there is to be done in that particular episode, in that particular day. Regardless of if that's big or small, it's not meaningful because of how much effort you have to put into it. It's meaningful because it is something. So evidently, Gintama is more than just the jokes and parodies that you often see scattered across social media. It's an incredibly human story about incomplete people, broken people, crazy people, and throughout this video in each section I kept referring to the other sections to better inform that section's discussion. That's because none of these themes are implemented in isolation. The different aspects of the story can hold multiple different meanings that present themselves more clearly to some people than to others, because with Gintama being a deeply human story, and this kind of applies to every story as well, but it also most definitely applies here with this one, each person will have their own take. Like maybe you find that the series taught you about how your past can inform your present and future. Maybe it taught you that you should not bear the weight of your burdens alone. Whatever it is, it's correct. You're correct, because just like how Gintoki is the only one who can decide how to define himself, if at all, only you can decide what something means to you.